Next Curve.
Hey everyone, welcome to Next Curve's reThink webcast and our Analyst Corner. And I'm Leonard Lee, Executive Analyst at Next Curve. And more specifically, welcome to another episode of From the Radio to the RIC, the most infamous telco podcast in the known metaverse. And I'm here with my co-host, Earl of EJL Wireless Research. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about the news that Earl broke on AT&T selecting Ericsson as their open RAN vendor. And can you say single source? But hey, how's it going, Earl?
Doing great, Leonard. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I just wanted to congratulate you for being blamed for breaking this news.
Thank you. I take full responsibility.
I think it was like the biggest news of the month, right? And we're only halfway through, and
definitely,
I think it's gonna survive as the biggest news item as we close out 2023.
I hope so.
So tell us a little bit of, how all this came about, maybe, or maybe you don't want to talk about that, but we'll definitely get into implications. But share with the audience, our from the radio to the RIC audience about how this all came about and what you think.
Definitely, there's always rumors floating around in the industry. You and I hear them all the time. The question is, what's the validity of any of those rumors?
Yeah.
And does anyone care? And in the case of something of this magnitude, which was similar to the one regarding Nokia and Verizon several years ago, people do care because it's a major shift in market share in a very lucrative region and one of the tier one regions of the world outside of obviously China. Right. So any major event is going to be important. And I had heard wind of this via some of my contacts out there in the industry. And then I was able to verify that there was public information that was being leaked out on the web. But that's usually not enough to say I'm going to stick my neck out on a branch and hang myself. So I had to do a lot of primary research and calling a bunch of people everywhere that I could to make sure that I felt comfortable in saying what I was going to say and writing and posting what I wrote, and that I wasn't going to be getting any phone calls from the Security and Exchange Commission of the United States Stock Exchange. So all of that said, and all of the vetting that I did in calling all the contacts that I knew in the industry to ask them, is this likely, and how likely 50-50 is it going to be that this happens? And everyone came back saying that, yeah, this looks like it's real. Mm. And then the question was timing, which obviously I did not know it was going to be 3 days later.
Yeah.
While we were going out to Marvell to go to that analyst meeting, that all of the news suddenly just broke wide open on Monday.
Yeah, that morning, right?
Yeah. And I think I was on a plane.
Yeah. So, obviously, huge implications for Nokia because they're being displaced. A lot of their, in recent reporting there and disclosures by AT&T and Ericsson, they're going to be replacing their radios, right? As well as other RAN equipment and software. So pretty broad implications. I mean, what's your summary, or what are some of your thoughts about the actual win for Nokia, obviously, and implications for the parties that are involved?
I think certainly I didn't know about all of the financial details that were revealed on Monday when the news broke out. So my original understanding and analysis was a conjecture based upon the technology that Nokia had and the potential issues surrounding that technology and why one would want to choose Ericsson if they had to go to a single vendor.
Mhm.
And I think the issue then becomes financially for Ericsson. What does that mean in terms of how much they're going to be contributing to the rip and replace and all of that? But from AT&T's perspective, it was a buyer's market, just like we have seen in the real estate when it was a seller's market, right? When we went through COVID. We are now in a buyer's market for RAN equipment, and given the fact that most of the regions are weak and we're not seeing a lot of demand, and everyone's waiting to monetize 5G at this point. So I think AT&T was extremely smart in taking advantage of that situation of where their market currently is right now, and Ericsson was willing to meet the demands of AT&T, and so it ended up being, I guess, a win for the both of them from the standpoint of Ericsson securing that complete network, and for AT&T getting a really good deal on the units and on any potential financing that might be part of the deal.
Yeah, and a lot of so there were a lot of folks that are touting this as a big Open RAN win. I mean, we've kind of teased that as well, but it's sort of in a measured way. We call it a Open RAN win in the context of Open RAN Squid Game, which may not be the conventional lens that you might, interpret a win with. But what are your thoughts there? What are the implications on Open RAN?
I think similar to Samsung's deal over at Vodafone in the UK, which was a Huawei swap out, where it was essentially mostly single vendor. If you look at the Samsung win at Dish, that was for that half of the network, it was again single vendor, Open RAN compliant. I think that's the key word.
Yeah.
This is along that way where eventually it will be open and you will be able to add other vendors. But if you look at it from an operator's perspective, why would you risk everything in your network and throw a bunch of new vendors and completely add chaos when the most important thing is network stability? So sticking with a vendor that you already like, that you know has equipment that works, that you got at a really good deal now, is all positive for AT&T.
Right. And we're talking about, the number that was floated out there, 14 billion out to 2026, I think, right? Isn't that
5-year deal? So I guess if it starts next year, then beyond 26.
Okay. Yeah, I saw 26, but maybe somebody was doing the math wrong. And so, that's really interesting. And I think it definitely undermines the thesis that the Open RAN is going to really be making inroads into brownfields with a multi-vendor value proposition, right? And that's something that we've been talking about actually all through the year. Previous, at least I've been talking about that for the last 3 years plus. And so it's interesting to see this play out kind of along the lines of what you and I have been talking about on the show since the beginning of the year and since we've done this collaboration. So I think it's really telling of the approaches that the Open RAN community needs to consider if they're going to cater to the brownfield operators, right? Because like you said, they're looking for an integrated stack. That's cost optimized, right? They're going to put pressure on somebody, a single throat to choke. That might not be an SI. That might just be
it might be an incumbent,
right? Because
again, their stuff works. It works. You just want it to work with the other incumbents that you already have, right? So I think this has been mentioned before. What if all of this Open RAN stuff was just to ultimately get the incumbents to be able to be mixed and matched with each other, and there was never any reason for wanting to go to any new vendor from the operators in the first place?
Yeah, which is interesting because in the future, Nokia could have another go at this. Maybe it's at a certain level of layer of the Open RAN software stack. It could be the radio. There's possibilities, but one of the things that I saw in one of the Ericsson press releases was a mention that the opening of the RAN with their products is going to be done on a case-by-case basis, right? So this is going to be a measured thing. And obviously, speaking to the folks at AT&T, they're looking at integration and having to deal with how they need to modernize their network over time and make it more open, that being more of the priority. And that's what we heard at 5G Americas, right? So
right.
Those of you who are listening, if you missed out on our coverage of 5G Americas, go check it out. We talk about it, and it's very related to what's happening now. But even more importantly for vendors as well as other operators looking at, okay, what would a roadmap look like, an adoption roadmap for Open RAN look like? You refer to this material. I mean, we put a lot of insights out there that are, that do kind of, might rub people the wrong way, go against the grain, but are turning out to be very relevant. But from a practical sense, if you're a technologist, I think many of you will attest that a lot of this makes sense, right? Because nothing brownfield ever goes green. It takes a while. You go through a lot of different shades of brown and green before you get to something that resembles green. So no, it was a great gamble, and you ended up nailing it. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I'm just glad it didn't go the other direction, and it ended up being true. But that's as an analyst, you and I are both well aware, as well as our colleagues, that we have to have some level of conviction of whatever call we're going to make based upon what we know and what's the likelihood of that happening. So, and also just to add to the whole openness part, for anyone that listened to the full 3.5 hours of Nokia's financial update yesterday morning, they talked about a win with Deutsche Telekom in New Brandenburg town, where they're going to be supplying the L1, L2, L3 functions, but it's in an AirScale purpose-built base station or baseband unit from Nokia. It's not a virtual product. It's not a CU-DU split product. It is a fully integrated normal baseband product, just like the normal baseband products Ericsson's going to be supplying to AT&T.
Yeah. Details matter, right?
They do.
It's great perspective. Thanks for sharing. It's great to do this collaboration with you, Earl. So those of you who don't know Earl, you must follow him and EJL Wireless research content. Okay, you can find it at www.ejlwireless.com. And yes, he is the person to follow, because many folks in our analyst community will vouch for that Earl knows what he's talking about. And then also, please subscribe to the Next Curve YouTube channel. And the easiest thing to do is to subscribe to the Next Curve Research Portal and Media Center at www.next-curve.com, and go there on a regular basis for the tech and industry insights that matter. And until next time, keep it real. Once again, Earl, always great to hang out. And
thanks for having me again, Leonard.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time.
All righty.